this countdown, we have the photographic evidence. A couple of years ago, a man named Edward came forward claiming that he was a time traveler from the year 5000. He even came with evidence. Now, he used a fake name and had his identity hidden so people weren't gonna come after him. So according to Edward, he claims he was part of a top secret experiment that took place in 2004. During the test, he was successfully transported in time. He was taken to LA 5,000 years in the future, and it's not looking too good. He said, and I quote, "I was standing on a huge wooden platform, and after I realized it was the same city, Los Angeles, but underwater." This man's claims were backed up with evidence. He took a photo of LA underwater. I don't even know what to think. Either he's good at Photoshop or he's actually a time traveler. I just thought that the water would be way more polluted than that. Like, that's far too clear, you know? It's a little sketchy.
Number 9. Greta Thunberg's doppelganger. What doesn't this girl do? First, she takes on the world's global environmental issues, gaining recognition on like every media outlet, and now she may be a time traveler. Social media blew up with the time travel theories when a 19th century photo surfaced that features Greta, or at least someone who looks just like her. It's true, the resemblance is astounding, so is this a case of time traveling, adventures, or just a common gene pool? Well, firstly, the situation of the photo doesn't actually suit Thunberg's environmental initiatives. The photo was taken in 1898, and the 3 children featured in it are sifting for gold, like Greta would ever be seen next to a mine. According to the University of Washington Libraries, the photo was also taken in the Canadian Yukon Territory, far from Greta. Greta hasn't responded to the fanatics obsessed with the photo, and her silence only feeds the theories. Who knows, maybe she just has one of those faces, or maybe she was sent back to do more of her research. After all, Greta does seem to prove time and time again that she isn't your average teen. Number 8. A mummy loves some Adidas. Discovering a mummy is a pretty big deal in itself, but discovering one with some pretty sweet kicks? One of the most unique and oldest pairs of shoes were discovered when a Mongolian mummy was unearthed. Her body was found in the Altai Mountains in Mongolia, and on her feet were a peculiar pair of shoes. They looked like trendy Adidas shoes. Now, they aren't actually Adidas, but they do feature the signature striped style of the shoe. After the restoration, it was revealed that they were actually a pair of knee-high boots with a striped black and red pattern. They also featured decorated buckles and leather soles. Our ancient fashionista also carried with her a clutch bag, mirror, comb, a knife, and a saddle with the remains of a horse. So lots to do. Researchers estimate that she died due to a blow to the head. Interesting. I know, this may have taken the wind out of your sails, but considering they appear so similar to today's designs, could it be that she might have gotten her inspiration from a distant traveler? A traveler who sported remarkable striped leather shoes and inspired the 1,000-year-old seamstress? Number 7. The Philadelphia survivor. The Philadelphia experiment is perhaps one of the most famous urban legends / conspiracy theories / actual historical event. For context, the Philadelphia experiment is an alleged military experiment that was carried out by the US Navy. In 1943, the USS Eldridge allegedly was made invisible and teleported from Pennsylvania to Virginia, either through time or parallel universe. What's the difference, really? The story actually originated in 1955 when ex-merchant marine Carl M. Allen claimed to witness the event. He sent a book full of handwritten annotations to prove it, though it might be a hoax. Who knows? Did this actually happen? Who knows? But the movie definitely did, and it did nothing to help the conspiracy theories circling the world. But a man named Alfred Bielek found the film incredibly life-changing, as while watching it, he realized who he actually was, the lone survivor of the experiment. After seeing the 1988 film, Bielek's memories came flooding back, and he was actually Ed Cameron, and he had been born in 1916. So if this was real, it ticks all the boxes. Parallel universes, time travel, aliens, Philadelphia, science. Number 6. The Missing Hotel. This one gives me like Howl's Moving Castle vibes. Could be because I watched it recently for like the 12th time, so I don't know. But a building that's there 1 minute and then gone the next? I don't know. A couple traveling Europe had a unique experience, one they will never forget despite history seeming to. This story was featured on a TV series called Strange But True. 2 couples headed off to Spain in the 1970s to live their best lives, but time travel wasn't on the itinerary. They were on their way from England, passing through France when they decided to stop and search for accommodations. Everywhere in Montelimar was packed save one place that was simply labeled hotel. They got a room that was tremendously old-fashioned with no glass in the windows and no phone. But it was the breakfast the next morning that shocked them. The other guests were dressed in like outdated clothing, and their breakfast only came out to 19 francs, like which was way lower than what they thought. Hey, that's a win. They took tons of pictures of the vintage hotel and planned on returning next time they were in Europe. But the hotel disappeared. When they looked for the hotel again, it was no longer there, and no locals knew what the heck they were talking about. Even eerier, their photographs did not develop, like it had all been a glitch. Number 5, the bridge opening. Next up we have this picture. See if you can spot the one who is out of place. Found him? In case you missed it, we are talking about the gent dressed in the all too familiar type of like hipster style. He sticks out like a sore thumb with his thick black glasses, graphic t-shirt, and what looks to be some kind of hooded cardigan. This photo blew up across time travel enthusiast forums, like he's the ultimate hipster. The location of the photo was at the reopening of the Southport Bridge in Goldbridge, British Columbia in 1941. He also looks to be the youngest guy in the photo. Strange considering he would have been enlisted in the Canadian Army at that point. Correct me if I'm wrong. So why is such a young circa 2010 sporting gent standing at the Southport Bridge? Could it be he was sent back to document the event and was accidentally documented himself? Number 4, Andrew Carlssin. This next one is for all my Game Stoppers out there who love that Robin Hood story. I did too. I really did. It sounds like Andrew Carlssin pulled a Biff from Back to the Future though. Police arrested the 44-year-old in 2003 when he was somehow able to turn $800 into $350 million over 2 weeks. Like that's the damn dream, man. Authorities believe that he must have had insider help, which according to Andrew wasn't exactly untrue. Andrew told the court that he was actually a time traveler from the year 2256, and that is how he knew. Obviously, who the heck would believe that ridiculous excuse? But wait, it gets weirder. Andrew disappeared without a trace. A month later, a mysterious benefactor paid $1 million buyout to get him out. On April 2nd, Andrew was supposed to meet with his lawyer, but he had entirely disappeared without a trace. No evidence of his existence could be found before the year 2002. Andrew, can you come back and just tell me how you did that? That'd be great, you know? Anyways, number 3, put your phone away. When I go to my next concert, there is one thing I really hope I don't see. People watching like the whole thing through their phones while they're at a live concert. It just bothers me so much. Like maybe do it once to commemorate it, but not the entire time, dude, you know? Someone should have said that to this time traveler in the background of Mike Tyson's 1994 match with Peter McNeely. Check this out. Yup, right in the background is a smartphone, obviously, right? I still remember my mom having like a tiny screen dial phone well into like 2001. There was no way what looks to be a Galaxy phone would be around back then. Debunk this photo if you want, but if that is indeed a time traveler who was sent back, dude, time and place. Number 2, the Nazca astronaut. Out of all the items on this list, this is the largest example of time travel in history by sheer size. The Nazca lines are located 250 miles south of Lima, Peru, and feature over 70 massive depictions of animals that can only be seen from the sky. But the one we are talking about is definitely either a sign for aliens or time travel. Among the 70 images, there's a strange humanoid figure that looks remarkably similar to an astronaut. Some of the designs from the geoglyphs measure around 30 miles, and experts have no idea how or why these drawings were created with such precision. The astronaut is the strangest of them all. Kinda looks like not only an astronaut, but it looks like it's waving, you know? Weird. Was this an homage to a strange spaceman who came traveling and visited the people of Peru? I personally wouldn't be surprised. And last but not least, Edgar Allan Poe. This last and final one, I have to thank Olivia for like helping me dive down this rabbit hole because it really is convincing. I'm fully on board. So is she. So here we go. Edgar Allan Poe has to have been a time traveler, or maybe he still is. Either way, he must have had some sixth sense. Okay, so first off, he predicted the future. 46 years after Edgar published his first novel called The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket in 1838, something weird happened. At one point in the book, their ship, Grampus, became stranded without food or water after a mutiny and must resort to desperate measures. The crew draws straws to see who would be sacrificed for sustenance. A boy named Richard Parker lost the deal. 46 years later, in 1884, the exact thing happens with the exception that the boat was a sinking yacht. 4 men were set adrift and forced to do the same thing, and guess the name of the boy who died! Richard Parker. Example 1. Example 2, 1840. Poe penned the story called The Businessman Who Endures a Violent Life After a Head Injury. He was hit in the head as a young kid, causing an injury to his frontal lobe, which Poe seemed to entirely understand in intricate detail. But the first time behavioral changes caused by this kind of injury were able to be studied didn't come until 1848. An actual neurologist, Eric Altschuler, wrote, and I quote, "There's dozens of symptoms and he knows every single one. There's everything in that story, we've hardly learned anything more. It's so exact that it's just weird, and it's like he had a time machine." Unquote. Point 3. Who is the figure who visits Poe's grave every year and puts a rose on it? Perhaps Poe is coming back to honor a past life. After all, why is a raven like a writing desk? Because Poe wrote on both.
Coming into number 10, we have an assassination warning from the year 4932. Apex TV, as you'll soon discover, are the gift that keep on giving. They make paranormal videos and are basically a conspiracy theorist's wet dream. In December 2017, they published an audio clip purportedly sent in to them by a time traveler from the year 4932. How did the time traveler reach them in the first place? By email, apparently. 30 years ago we were sending post, but apparently in 2,900 years time we're still sending emails. I'm actually just gonna say straight up we won't be, we're just gonna be communicating with the power of our minds. Anyway, the anonymous time traveler has a warning about the future president, which he says will be enough to get him killed for relaying. He says that the year 4932 is a time and a world that many people listening to would not relate to as ideal, and that time as a traveling journey has destroyed future ambition. He says that humanity no longer seem to pursue progression. He also claims that years are mysteriously falling off the calendar. He said that when attempting to journey to a future year that they'd previously journeyed upon, our error notes returned the period classification as unavailable. This suggests that the future is changeable, and with that logic, he assumes that the past is too. His message warns of the assassination of a President Janu Oliver Beck in July 2084. Janu, by the way, is supposed to be born in September this year, so watch out for that. The time traveler says he must never be elected because he must never be assassinated. Apparently the president was also a philosopher before taking office, and he managed to prove the existence of a god. The time traveler said if we preserve his philosophy, we will preserve the future of humanity. He ended the message by saying a number sequence: 16, 8, 4, 4, 8, 4, 4, 4, 8, 8, 4, 8. Now this has stumped Apex TV viewers. The video has had over 2.6 million views, and none of them know what the weird numbers at the end mean.
In our 9th spot, we have Vladimir Putin. Turns out that the president of Russia is a time traveler. Take a look at these photos. First, we got a Russian soldier from 1920, and he looks identical to Putin. Then we have another Russian soldier from 1941, and he also looks like a young Putin, who is pictured on the far right. Too eerie. Either he's immortal, or he's a time traveler. Moving on, at number 8, we have the TikTok time traveler. Now, I talked about this case briefly before, and I'm throwing it on today's list because it's the most recent case of time travel. Basically, a guy named Javier claims that he is a time traveler who is now stuck in the year 2027. The scariest part is that the entire human race is wiped out by then. On his TikTok page, he posts videos of him wandering the streets of Spain alone. He has gone to stadiums, airports, police stations, hospitals, restaurants, and malls. No one is there except himself, which is crazy because normally those places would be packed with people, but they aren't. So here's the thing. Either he's a time traveler and was sent to the future to warn us, or he's somehow faking it. But a number of people have analyzed his videos. Some people believe he edits everyone out of the video. Sure, it's possible to edit objects and people out of videos, but it's harder to do with multiple people in the shot, in which there would be, and it's harder if the people are moving around, which they would be. Another theory is that these videos were pre-filmed, that they were filmed during the pandemic when they were under lockdown and had a curfew. But in order to prove that that's not the case, he gets his followers to tell him where he should go next. He then will go to that specific place and prove no one is there. The freakiest part is he has gone to hospitals. If this was filmed during the pandemic, the hospitals would be filled with people. But when he walks around, no one, and I mean no one, is there. Maybe this is real and we should take him seriously. Who knows, but believe what you want to believe. In our 7th spot, we have the 800-year-old cell phone. In 2016, a group of researchers unearthed an ancient-looking cell phone in Austria. The phone is covered in cuneiform writing, which dates back to thousands of years ago, making this object thousands of years old. But obviously, we didn't have phones back then, when this clearly looks like it was modeled after a Nokia phone. Alien hunters believe that it comes from an advanced civilization that has come to Earth. Others believe that this object is proof of time travel. What's even more weird is that I can't seem to find much about this phone online, so it looks like no one has debunked it yet. Maybe it's real then, who knows? In our 6th spot, we have the man named Noah. Back in 2018, a man came forward claiming that he was a time traveler from the year 2030. He called himself Noah. Obviously, it's not his real name, and he sat down for a television interview to share with the world what life is like in 2030. But of course, his face and voice were distorted to protect his identity. He said that he can't let anyone know who he really is. Basically, he said that he will be killed for speaking the truth about time travel. He goes on to prove that he's a real time traveler by getting an x-ray of his hand. Upon doing so, it's revealed that there's a weird device implemented in his wrist. That's what Noah says is what helps him when he time travels. Not only that, but he underwent a lie detector test and he passed it, showing that his claims were real. Now, what did he say is in store for the future? Well, since this occurred in 2018, he said that in 2019 it will be filled with more UFO sightings, which, yes, that was true. He also claims that in 2028, that's when aliens will come down to Earth, and that's also the year that the government will reveal that time travel is real. That's pretty intense if you ask me. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Antikythera mechanism. In 1900s, a team of divers exploring the Greek island of Antikythera made a fascinating discovery. They came across an ancient shipwreck. The ship was filled with statues, jewelry, coins, pottery, you name it. They were all like, booyah, jackpot. As they continued searching the ship though, they came across this weird object. It was a blob of corroded bronze and wood. 2 years later, an archaeologist decided to examine this and discovered it was an astronomical clock. But the items came from ancient Greece and clocks hadn't been invented then. This item was in similar size to a mantle clock, and the bits of wood fragments on it suggest that it was probably in a wooden case. They also believe the case would have had like a circular face or rotating hands. There was also a knob on the side, and the mechanism could rotate forwards and backwards. Needless to say, it was a fairly complex object for that time period, so some believe that it was left by a time traveler. If not, then what could this device be, and how come it was so advanced for its time? In our 4th spot, we have the year 3207.
Quote was time machine. They took me to a room filled by many kinds of displays, gadgets, wires that I had never ever seen. The head of project came to me and told all about that mystical project.
A couple of years ago, an unidentified Greek man came forward saying that he traveled in time to the year 3207. He claims that he was shot forward in time and spent 2 days in the year 3207 as part of a top secret military program. He was paid $100,000 to do so.
That after some minutes they would send me to the year 3207. As I understood, I was kinda laboratory mouse for them, But the money and career that I was suggested were worthy for it.
He claims that in the future, the buildings were massive, triple the size that they are today. He also says that there were flying cars and that there was strange colored grass. It wasn't green, but a deep purple. And lastly, he said that aliens, humans, big animals, and robots were all walking together down the street. That's pretty interesting, not gonna lie. Don't know if I believe that guy, but some people do. I mean, he also showed photographic evidence, but claims that the photos got a bit distorted while going through the whole time travel process. To me, they kind of just look like bad Photoshop, but you decide. In our 3rd spot, we have Paul Dyneck. Now, if you haven't heard about this case before, then you're in for a shock. In 1921, a man named Paul Dyneck, a Swiss-Australian teacher, slipped into a coma for about a year. For that year, he claimed that he went to the year 3096, where he switched consciousness with a man named Andrew Northman. One minute he was in a coma, next he's inside Andrew's body speaking a foreign language. For that year, he was living as Andrew. Paul was so scared to tell anyone of this experience, so he just wrote it in his diary and kept it a secret. However, just before he passed away, he gave his diary to one of his students to translate, and that's when it was revealed that he had somehow time traveled to the future. It's pretty insane. Could he be telling the truth, or was it all just a coma dream? In our second spot, we have the time-traveling murderer. Okay, this next story is going to leave you baffled. Back in 2014, a woman was found dead in London. It was clearly a murder. Thankfully, her attacker's DNA was found all over her body. Upon doing a forensics test, they got a match. But here's the thing, the supposed attacker was found dead a full 3 weeks before her victim. So how is it possible for her to kill someone when she had already died? So people think that the killer was a time traveler, and that days before her own death, she went a couple weeks into the future to kill this woman. I don't even know. It's just an insane case, if you ask me. And in our number 1 spot today, we had the London Hammer. Back in 1936 Texas, a man named Max Hahn and his wife were out for a walk when they stumbled upon this odd rock with a tool sticking directly out of it. This is what is now called the London Hammer, or the London Artifact. It was discovered to be part of a hammer that was trapped inside a rock that dates back to being over 400 million years old. Clearly back then they did not have hammers, so how the heck did a modern day human-made tool date back to a time where humans weren't even around? Theory goes that it was dropped by a time traveler, but I want to know who would go that far.
Number 10. Sir Victor Goddard. This story really freaks me out. Sir Victor Goddard was a wing commander in 1935 and he was making a trip over to an airbase in Drem, Scotland. Little did he know that this routine trip would change his life forever. As he was flying over the base, he took in the rough condition it was in. The fields were unkept with grass cracking through the tarmac and cattle had begun invading to graze. Then suddenly the weather took a miserable turn, and in order to prevent an accident, he decided to make for a landing at the base. But as he got closer and closer to landing, the rain began to let up and the sun broke through the clouds. Suddenly he saw a flurry of mechanics in clean and tidy blue uniforms working diligently on yellow planes. Usually the mechanics at the time formerly wore khaki uniforms, so the blue was a bit of a shock. Additionally, they were working on yellow planes instead of silver. Goddard left shaking his head to remove whatever fever dream he was having, only to revisit the exact moment when he visited the site again 4 years later. He saw the exact same thing, blue uniforms, yellow planes, and had to deal with quite a fierce bit of deja vu. Ever since this story came to light, it's not hard to believe he traveled into the future, or back in time.
Coming into number 9, we have the Great Awakening in the Age of Aquarius. On November the 26th, 1977, a scary alien voice interrupted a British TV broadcast at 5:10 in the afternoon on ITV. Hijacking the Hannington transmitter, a scary speaker interrupted transmissions for 6 whole minutes, claiming to be an alien called Virillan from the Intergalactic Association. With a distorted voice, Virillan says that all weapons of mass evil must be removed. He warns humanity that they have a short time to learn how to live together in peace. The voice implored viewers to remain peaceful so that we could be part of the Great Awakening in the Age of Aquarius. The hijacker was voice only, and later ITV called the hijack a breakthrough in sound. Now, the identity of the hijacker has never been found, but afterwards tongues were firmly set wagging. A lot of alien conspiracy theorists hailed the interruption as a message from aliens of the future who have mastered the ability to send messages through space-time. Coming into number 8, we have the Drunk Traveler. Do you know what? I might try this one. In October 2017, police officers in Casper, Wyoming apprehended a drunk who claimed to be a time traveler. The self-confessed time traveler had a message of warning too. Now, this warning wasn't beer and liquor never sicker, which is a shame because I think he could have used some advice there. His warning actually said that aliens will arrive in the year 2018 and cause havoc. The drunk man said that he was from the year 2048 and he was able to time travel because, and I quote, aliens filled my body with alcohol. Alright then. Coming into number 7, have we been sent a message from the future from a nearby star? Okay, when are we going to stop naming our stars insane letter combinations? This star is HD 164595, which really isn't very catchy. This star is a G-type star 94.35 light years away from Earth. In 2015, we seemingly received a message from something in the vicinity of this star. The signal was only heard once by the Rattan 600 radio in Russia. It was not reported to the rest of the world until 2016. Now, the announcement came as part of the Breakthrough Listen project, which is now scanning the nearest 100 galaxies for transmissions. The star has been of interest to humans because it is in a habitable zone. A lot of theorists are suggesting that the message could be from a future form of humanity or even aliens. Coming into number 6, we have Noah. Noah, what a guy. He made headlines in 2017 when he appeared in several news publications and in an interview with Paranormal Elite. Noah claimed to be from the year 2021, but apparently he'd been to the year 2120. It seems that Noah isn't his real name, it's just a name used to protect his identity. The man said that he was 50, but he'd taken secret drugs to make him younger, so he appears as a 25-year-old. Good. Great. In a video for Paranormal Elite, he says his sole objective was to prove that time travel exists. He said that it was invented in 2003 but was only used by top secret organizations. Time travel was then publicly released in 2028. He said that he works for the government in 2021, but unfortunately he's been fired, meaning he can't get back to his time. He says that flying cars exist in 2021 and people love virtual reality. He also says that in 2021 the US president is still Donald Trump and that the sky is red with global warming in Las Vegas in 2120. He also claims that North Korea is a huge threat to the world in 2030. Coming into number 5, we have John Titor, who had some worrying words for America. John Titor claimed to be an American military time traveler from 2036, and he wrote on a number of blogs and bulletin boards between 2000 and 2001. He started with the Time Travel Institute forums. John's words were so impactful and garnered so much attention that countless works of literature and music have been inspired by them. His story is long, so I just want to give you the cliff notes. He basically says that the USA breaks up into 5 smaller constituents as a result of civil war. He also says that humans create a miniature black hole and that World War III would be erupting soon. Although his message very much panicked people 18 years ago, a lot of the things that John said would have happened by now haven't yet happened. He explained at the time of his warnings that the future is changeable, and a lot of people think that by spreading his warnings in the first place, he actually created a new timeline of events. Some people were so wrapped up in his narrative, they created the John Titor Foundation. Up next, a lot of people think that our next warning from the future also came from John using a different name. At number 4, we have the Y2K bug scare. A lot of people pin down the Y2K scare to a number of faxes received in 1998 by Coast to Coast AM. Basically, a lot of people were concerned that come the year 2000, computers would just break down and all hell would break loose. An anonymous time traveler faxed into the show saying that Y2K is a disaster and that the government had to take control using martial law. The time traveler wrote in by fax, which, yeah, cool, I'm sure we definitely are still faxing in 2034. The time traveler warned that people suffer in the future because they forget their basic survival skills, and you know what? I can kind of see that. As we know, the Y2K bug didn't happen, but some people were super scared. Coming into number 3, we have a 2016 computer virus. In December 2016, swathes of people around the world reported a scary computer malfunction that they assumed was a virus. People's internet browsing or Netflix viewing was interrupted by text from a man who said he was from the future. The text was patchy and mismatched, but eventually, through crowdsourcing, it was pieced together. The full text claimed to be from a man who said that he was a chronoquantum technician whose work had been banned. He said it was because, and I quote, to prevent me from doing exactly what I'm doing now, at long last sending a warning to our ancestors. He said that humans are taking a path into darkness, and it all began in the late 20th century when humans started accepting crimes and absolutely inhumane practices. He claimed all of the last 4 United States presidents were corrupt and blindsided people into accepting cruelty. Because humans were so stupid as not to realize what the politicians were up to, the hacker from the future claimed that we, your descendants, have lived in squalor, rancor, violence, and despair all of our lives for generations. Coming into number 2, we have the unrecognizable humans of 2987. Apex TV interviewed this guy in Armenia. Now, he said that he was employed by the Soviet in 1987. They wanted to send him and a group of fellow time travelers back in time to the 1600s. The machine that they invented was allegedly called the history corrector, and it was designed to send people back to correct mistakes made in Russian history. The only problem was, they found they couldn't send people back, only forward. As a result, the man was sent forwards in time by 1,000 years to 2987 using a special watch. He said that in little under 1,000 years, people are unrecognizable and almost mechanical. They're covered in devices and strange clothing. He said that people don't move, they levitate and apparate. He said that people are busy and emotionless and unhappy. He said that there are only 4 countries that exist: the Asian Federation, the Soviet Union, America, and a mysterious country called RA. Good news though, people do travel to Mars, and it's supposed to be really lovely in 1,000 years, so get me there. Finally, bad news for you guys living in the City of Angels, because LA is going to be underwater in the year 5000. I really feel like Busted called it when they said that they'd been to the year 3000 and not much had changed, but they live underwater, and then they met a really hot great-granddaughter. It was great, it was a good time. Maybe they're the real time travelers here. Seriously though, one time traveler called Edward offered a scary vision of the future. Speaking to our mates at Apex TV, who else, Edward said that he worked on a top secret experiment in 2004 which allowed him to time travel to the future. He said that he arrived at a wooden city floating on the water where he met a man who informed him of the post-apocalyptic floods. He ventured into the ocean and saw the old city sitting at the bottom of the ocean bed. He said that the flooding was as a direct result of global warming and that many people had suffered from the loss of coastal city worldwide. He basically confirmed that yes, the polar ice caps do melt and so many people drown.